Hello, my name is Greg Dietz, and I'm one of the school counselors at Lancaster Catholic High School. Today I wanted to walk you through our post-secondary planning presentation that we gave at our junior coffee with counselors a couple of weeks back, just so you had the information that we reviewed. We are currently meeting with all of our junior students, and they received this information, so we thought you might like to see it as well. First thing is that students have a bunch of different options when they are looking at post-secondary planning. Some students will attend a four-year school, some will attend a two-year school or a trade school, some might enter the military, some might go into the working world, and some might take a gap year where they take a year off to maybe work or volunteer, maybe defer admission to a college, and then decide to go back to school after taking a year off. So these are all options that we discuss with students to make sure that they're making the best possible choice for themselves. This presentation is mostly geared toward those who are going to college because each year we send about 95% of our students to a two-year or a four-year school. But if you have questions about any of those other options, please feel free to contact your student's counselor. As for testing, I want to talk about the SAT and the ACT. Here you can see the dates for this coming spring. That May 6th test is creeping up, and a lot of our students don't take that test because it is the day after prom. But the June test is the last chance to take the SAT in your student's junior year. That's on June 3rd. And there you can see the deadline is May 9th, so that is coming up. You can sign up for that test by visiting sat.collegeboard.org. The ACT, the last test that students can take this year, is on June 10th, and the deadline for that is coming up as well on May 5th. You can sign up for that test at actstudent.org. I can tell you that colleges do not have a preference on which test students take. They will take either of them. The biggest difference between them is that the ACT has a science section, so some students prefer that, some students do not. But overall, since the SAT made some changes this past year, the tests are pretty much the same. Both will ask if your student wants to take a writing section. It does cost a little bit more money, but we recommend that students do take part in the writing section just because some colleges do require it, and we wouldn't want your student to get to application time just to find out that they need a writing score and they didn't take that part of the test. All right, so college-bound students, these are the things that they should be doing right now and into the summer: attending their junior meeting with their counselor, take at least one test, and also take college visits if you can. Some colleges are offering junior days and open houses right now, which is a great time to get familiar with the campus and meet with some faculty. Register on Parchment. That's how we send e-transcripts out, and all the students are doing that with their counselor in their individual junior meetings. We want to make sure that students are narrowing down their school choices. Some kids apply to just one school and they just put all their eggs in one basket. Some kids apply to 10 or 15 schools. We like if students can narrow it down to about 4 to 7, and I'll talk about that in just a little bit. And we also want students to research the college essay topics. We don't want students to write their college essay over the summer. They'll actually do that in their senior English class next year. But if they can get an idea of what they would like to write about and jot down some ideas by just going online and searching college essay topics, that's a big help when it comes to application season and also getting ready for their senior English class. Then when your student comes back in the fall, we ask that they attend their senior meeting with us, and we will schedule those in late August and early September. Make a list of requirements for each school that they're interested in applying to, because every school will be different in terms of needing letters of recommendation, an essay, how to send transcripts. So it's good to make a list of everything that they'll need to do to stay organized. They should also create a resume or a letter of recommendation form. We typically recommend that students request letters of rec before they leave for summer vacation. That way, some teachers have the option of writing those letters over the summer if they choose to. But if they haven't already done that by the fall, they'll definitely want to do that as soon as they get back. Then ask for those letters of recommendation. They'll want to take an SAT or ACT again in the fall, and then also work on their financial aid form. That comes up more in October. That's when that form is available. Okay, so picking the school for you. There are a lot of options out there. We want students to categorize their schools into 3 different categories: reach, target, or safety. A reach school is a school they're not sure that they're going to get into. It might be academically. It could be very challenging to get in there, so they're not quite sure if they'll be admitted. It could also be a reach school because they're not quite sure if they could afford it, but they still want to give it a shot and see what kind of financial aid they might receive. It could also be a reach school just because it's far from home, and they're not quite sure if they want to be too far away. So it could be a reach for a couple of different reasons. We encourage students to apply to 1 or 2 reach schools. A target school is a school, as it says, that fits exactly what they want, and they're pretty confident that they would be admitted to it. So looking at averages, they are pretty sure that they would be admitted to that school. They're pretty sure that they could afford it as well. If they had to take out student loans, it's not something that will hinder them for years and years to come. Maybe it's a small amount. And they should also be comfortable with the academic program. They like where it's located. They like the campus, so it's a good fit. We encourage students to apply to 2 or 3 target schools. And then a safety school is the exact opposite of a reach school. A safety school is a school that a student knows that they're going to get admitted to 100%. A student knows that they can afford it, or for some students who are applying to schools that are a little further from home, this could be a school that is a little bit closer to home. A big thing that I like to emphasize with our students is that students should still be happy with their safety school. A lot of times I work with students who might apply to a school as a safety school, and then it comes time to picking and they have to choose that safety school, but they're not very happy with it. So it's important that they're still okay with that school being their safety. This will differ for each student, so we recommend going to bigfuture.collegeboard.org to do some research. And once you search individual schools, you can see what their admissions averages are in terms of GPA, class rank, SAT scores, ACT scores. So it gives a student a really good idea of how does this school fall in terms of reach, target, and safety. And there's also a lot of information about paying for school as well. So the factors in the admission decision, this is just a quick list based on some research that we've done. Grades are number 1 on this list. So that really is just looking at your students' GPA and how they've done in their classes in their time in high school. Next up comes the strength of a school's curriculum, and Lancaster Catholic is very well known for our curriculum's rigor. Up next comes the test scores, followed by an essay or a writing sample. Important to note that some schools do have test optional applications where students do not need to submit SAT or ACT scores. Not every school is going to be like that. But you might want to look into that if your student isn't a big fan of standardized tests, or they're not great test takers. That might be an option for you as well. If a school has an SAT or ACT optional policy, a student might be asked to submit another essay or another letter of recommendation. So that's some research that your student will have to do. And then rounding that out, a counselor rec, class rank, and teacher recommendation. I want to emphasize that class rank is very near the bottom of this list. Simply because class rank isn't always the best way to evaluate a student. A student could be 5th in a class of 50, or they could be 5th in a class of 1,000. That number 5 has a pretty big difference depending on the population of the school. So class rank is very low. It's much more important that the students just focus on their grades and doing the best that they can in their classes. So every college is going to approach the admissions process a little bit differently. Your smaller schools, for instance, LVC or E-Town, they're going to have a more holistic review process where they're going to take as much information as they can and really get to know your student at the individual level by looking at letters of recommendation, a resume, activities they've been involved in, and all that kind of stuff. Then the larger schools like Penn State and Pitt, they have a very mechanical process. So they're going to look at a GPA, they're going to look at test scores, they're going to compare them to what they're looking for specific programs. And if your student fits within that mold, then they will probably be admitted. And if they do not, they might be referred to a smaller branch campus at one of those schools, or they might not be admitted at all. So there's not a lot that you can necessarily do with those mechanical review processes because they're simply looking at the numbers because they get so many applications. And then the selective schools, those that are selecting fewer than 50%, they're like the small colleges in that they have a more holistic review process as well, and they're looking at more information as they make their admissions decisions. Again, colleges have de-emphasized class rank, so please let your students know that. Don't have them sweat too much over that class rank. All right, so we're just going to do a quick preview of what to expect in the application season. We don't typically talk to students too much about this in their junior year because there are other things we want them to focus on. This is more the conversation that we have with them next year as they come in and they start their senior year. So I'm just going to walk you through a few quick things with this. The Common Application is a website that students can use to apply to multiple schools at one time. Not every college in the United States uses this, only about 700 do. But this is a great way to apply to multiple schools at once and save a little bit of time because you only have to fill out one application. I will say that you still have to pay an application fee for each school, so you're not saving in that regard, unfortunately, but it does save some time in that you can add a couple of schools just to one application. The Common App also uses a common essay between all schools, so there might be one big essay that the student writes, and then maybe a couple smaller essays for each individual school. So it's a good idea as you're looking at colleges to go onto the Common App website, just Google Common App schools, and you'll be able to see a list of the schools that use the Common App. Next up is the college essay. Again, this is something your student will be working on in their senior English class. We want students to tell a personal story. We want it to be something that helps them to stand out and really gives good insight into who they are. We always encourage them not to have a best friend or a girlfriend or boyfriend proofread their essay. We want them to bring that essay to you. We want them to bring it to us or to their English teacher to get some help with the essay, making sure that it's polished. Now, not every school has an application fee, but most do, and they vary from about $35 to $60. I would say 50 is about average. Fee waivers are available to those who would qualify and they have economic need. You also might get fee waivers if you visit a college, you take an admissions tour. Sometimes schools will give those out as well. But the application fee is a big part of this, and this is another reason why we tell students not to apply to too many colleges, simply because at about $50 a piece, and then if you apply to 10 schools, now you're looking at $500. So it does get to be pretty pricey over time. Next up, supplemental forms. Not every school will require these, but it is up to your student to let a counselor know if a supplemental form needs to be submitted. We are more than happy to send these forms along to colleges, but it's up to the student to let us know if they need something sent from us. And the sooner they get it to us, the better. And then the transcript. So again, we had all of your students sign up for Parchment. That's how we send transcripts to schools electronically. It's a great system. The first 3 transcripts that your student sends through that system will be free. We pay for those, and after that, I believe it's about $4 per transcript to send to a school. So a transcript contains all the classes that they've taken in their time here, their final averages in that class, the GPA, and class rank. So your students are all set up and ready to go and to send transcripts, and they can begin requesting those as soon as they apply to colleges. In doing that, we will send the transcript as soon. I would encourage them to apply and then submit a transcript request. Students are also responsible for setting their own test scores. We cannot do that for them. They must be sent through the College Board website for SAT or AP tests and through the ACT website for sending test scores. Schools will not accept them from us. Letters of recommendation. This is the activities form I was talking about. We always recommend that students give teachers about 2 weeks to write a letter, and they fill this form out so that teachers have all the information they need to help them write a letter. It's always recommended that they ask for these letters in person, and not to be offended if someone says they would rather not write a letter simply because a teacher might get a lot of requests. They might not feel that they know your student well enough. So we always encourage students to just keep that in mind if someone happens to say no, but that's pretty rare. I also want to explain FERPA real quick. This is a law that states students have access to their educational records. So if they wanted to see a transcript or report card, we would show that to them, obviously. Same thing applies to letters of rec. They are educational records, but colleges typically ask that students waive their right to view letters of recommendation, mostly because then they know they're getting honest and unbiased letters from the writers themselves. It's certainly up to the students as to whether or not they want to waive those rights, but colleges do prefer that students waive their FERPA rights. And then financial aid, I'm not going to go too much into this. We will have a financial aid night in early September on Back to School Night that you should attend, but that process will take place in October. There's not too much you can do for this right now. Just make sure that your 2016 taxes are filed, and you will be good to go with filling out your financial aid forms at that time. And again, we'll cover that more in the fall. Last thing, your responsibilities, meaning your students' responsibilities versus ours. Just making sure they know what colleges require, contacting teachers and keeping us in the loop, and we'll make sure to send any paperwork that we can as soon as the students let us know. All right, so I know this was a very quick presentation, but if you have more questions, please contact your individual student's counselor. We are more than willing to help. We've loved meeting with your juniors, and we're looking forward to helping them next year as they transfer into senior year. Thanks so much for tuning in. Have a good day.